Let's pick up where we left off before. I want to have maybe two more people share. Steve, you can start us off. Two more people share where you're from and why you're here today. And then we're going to get into our next section. We're not going to do the group activity. We're going to skip right ahead and talk about the training process that we're headed towards. Go ahead, Steve.
Hello, my name is Steve DeFalco. I'm from the Fresno Central Church. I started out in the Clovis Church and moved in to the Central Church in 1985. So I was baptized in 78. I'm really impressed with the Lord's doing right now. I have started my music ministry 10 years ago, and in this ministry I reached these people in these shut-in places for Jesus. And I knew that's where I'm going to find God's lost sheep. And, and God has blessed this program. My program is called Psalm 69:30. I praise the name of God in song and praising Him in thanksgiving. And from now, God has directed me to here. I've been handing out glows all my life. For 10 years, I've been handing out glows.
But other literature before that.
Yeah. And so anyway, it's a blessing that this is going so big. And even today, I don't stop. I keep on handing out glows. Because the message needs to be reached out to everyone. Amen. Even into those places, the shut-in places. God has given each one a gift. And I know the gift that He's given me, but He's directed me into new gifts. And I thank God He's opened that door for me.
Amen. Right. Thank you, Steve. Who else would like to share? Just one more person, maybe. Where are you from? Why you're here at the Colporteuring meeting today? Going once. I'm looking at Tony. Going twice. I can just stand here for a while. That's fine.
Nelson, I could share one more thing real quick. If you want to hear. Really, it's a more important thing than what I shared.
Okay, go ahead.
And that is the fact that when I was in this work, I've never been closer to the Lord.
Amen.
And so I don't think I've ever slept better, too, than when I was in this work. And it's like if you're not moving forward, where are you moving? You're kind of moving backward. I don't want to be a sleepy Laodicean. I want to be fired up and really active in the Lord's work.
Amen. Powerful. Amen. Yeah, working for the Lord is not always the easiest thing, so you do sleep good at night, after a hard day's work. But it's good sleep, peaceful. So come on up so we don't have to turn the camera all the way around. All right? This is Karen. Karen's husband is the director of Souls West.
Hello, I'm Karen, and I grew up in Las Vegas, but I am in Arizona right now. Why am I here? So when I was about 15 or so, there was a guy from Washington somewhere. I don't remember his name. I think it was Gary. He came to train my mom to be a colporteur. And it was really interesting to me because I was like, wow, this guy is training my mom to be a colporteur, but my mom is really busy. So she told me to go with him. And so we would go door knocking for he was at our house for a whole week. So I went door knocking with him for a whole week. And I was really shy about
He came to train your mom?
Yeah.
But then you ended up going out instead?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Okay.
And then, so anyways, I ended up going with him and I was really impressed, but even though I didn't say much because I just shadowed him, it really left a big impression. And so then I remembered some friends from high school that had gone to Youth Rush. And so somehow I remembered some of those friends, and then I remembered about Youth Rush after another guy had invited us to go to this Colporteur reunion where there was a whole bunch of older people, and I was inspired by them because all these older people were colporteuring, literally older people, 50s.
You gotta be careful.
I always say that, but seriously.
That was old for back then.
No, yeah, they're older now.
Nowadays.
No, but these people, I was impressed by them because like they literally gave a lot of their time to go full-time colportering, and I was like, wow, if these people can do it, then I can do it too. And so then this man was there sharing testimonies, and during lunchtime he came up to me and he invited me to do youth rush, which gave me a flashback of like my friends like Amanda and some other friends that had gone colportering. So I went thinking that I was going to be the only young person, but I wasn't, thankfully. And so then I did youth rush and several summers of that, and that was a blessing. And then now that I'm a mom, I have a 6-month-old, and my husband's traveling a lot. I decided that I want to do that again because that was my first love. So,
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Karen. And we're happy to train you as soon as we can with the hardcover sets. Okay, so now we're going to transition, and Oleg, you and I are going to probably kind of be going back and forth on this, so you might want to come up so that we can easily kind of do this thing with the, and we're gonna now talk a little bit about the full-time colporteuring initiative for the conference here. Okay, and this is going to be the portion where we're going to talk about where we perceive God is moving us, as you have questions, I think mark them down because we definitely don't want to lose them. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to take the questions right now in this segment. You'll notice on your program that there's going to be a section for questions and answers after we get done with lunch. Please don't leave after lunch. We really want you to stick around because that's going to be an important segment. And yeah, let me start off by saying something really quickly. We're gonna explain the things that we know. There are things. This is a fluid process. This is something that has not been done in our conference for a very, very long time, and there are obstacles which we are slowly working our way through. We've already come a long way. There are still questions that Oleg and I are still working on with the administration at the conference here for how we're moving forward. So we won't be able to answer probably every question that you ask, but that's okay because we're starting the dialogue today with you, and whatever questions we don't get answered today, we're going to be in thorough communication with you. So that's why we're getting your contact information when you're signing in, and we're going to get indications from you as to what you're wanting to do with colporteuring. Some of you are here because you just are kind of curious, maybe, but not necessarily committing to colporteuring. Some are coming here already having a lot of experience as a colporteur, even a colporteur trainer. And so we have a broad spectrum of people here. And so what we're wanting to do and accomplish in this meeting today is get information from you about where you're wanting to go, share with you where we're planning on heading as a conference, and kind of giving you a bit of a timeline for where we expect things to unfold and how you can potentially participate. And we're going to continue the communication. Today's the beginning of the communication between us, not the end of the communication by any means. Okay, so let's start off with a brief overview here of where we're planning on doing, on heading. And by the way, what I'm sharing right now and what Oleg is sharing right now, this is a composite of adult colporteuring knowledge that we have gained from multiple places, and we're trying to synthesize that and make it work here in California. In today's world. So Oleg is coming to us with a lot of very good, successful experience under his belt from the South American Division. The South American Division is like the top with colporteuring in the world church. And we also have gone and done our investigation and picked the brains, as I mentioned earlier, of the Southern Union. You know, the Southern Union is really the only group left in the United States that's doing adult full-time colporteuring. And even in that program, in their entire union, they're only having, 25? Maybe 25 full-time colporteurs for the entire union. But they do have a system that's working for them. And we also here have done colporteuring for the hardcover sets. And so we're combining those three things together, and that's what we're going to be talking to you about today, is how you can, we're going to talk to you about the approach that we're doing here and how you can become involved in it. So let's start off by, whoa, I just pressed the button one time. I don't know what is going on. What was that? Back to the roots, please. Thank you. That's not the place I want to be at. Give us 1 second. You can just let what I said simmer in your mind and sink in because it was so deep. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this process, at least the training aspect of it, is what we're terming Colporteur Trade Academy. We have a website called colporteurtradeacademy.com that you can go to. How many of you have been to Colporteur Trade Academy already? Just basically not very many. Maybe most of you then are coming here because you've heard us, Oleg, preaching in your church, or us sending out a big email or bulletin inserts. But I would encourage you to go and visit that website. Much of what we're going to talk about right now can be found on colporteurtradeacademy.com, and that can explain things even hopefully a little bit more clearly. So Colporteur Trade Academy kind of has three components, and then there's a fourth one down here. I should say there's two components and then a third one at the bottom. The first one is the online training. There's a lot of colporteuring. When you get trained to do colporteuring, there's a fair portion of that which is done in a kind of a classroom setting where you're having to learn your canvas, for example. I mean, it takes quite a while to learn that canvas, doesn't it? You need to learn it word for word. It's built on purpose. It's worded very nicely so that you can give a great presentation both at the door and in the home. So you need to memorize it word for word, etc. In the online, we actually are almost, I should say, halfway, a little bit more than halfway through with the online training component, which is going to be the first step in the training that we're going to be offering here in the conference for people who want to learn how to do full-time colporteuring as a living. And in this, we're going to cover the basics of canvassing and get all that out of the way before you even get into the field training aspect. So by the time you're done with that, you will have learned quite a bit about colporteuring. Now, this is going to be, the online training component is going to be available for people to take no matter where they're at in the world. Now, most of what we're doing here on the online training is going to be obviously applicable to colporteurs who are working in our environment, in our society, with our books. So even if you transition over to the East Coast of the United States, a few of the things in the online training here are not going to necessarily be applicable to them. They might be using different books over there, for example, or have a slightly different canvas. If you go to, if a person from Africa takes the online training, well, then things could be significantly different. But we have a disclaimer there so that people know what they're getting into. So the online training component is something which we will have up and running by March 1. March 1 is the date when we're planning on having that going. At that point, you will be able to go and register and begin your online courses. There is a small fee for this. The reason why the training online, as well as the training in the field training, the reason why there is a cost to that is because at this point, the conference is not completely subsidizing everything that we've done. This is a completely new work. We've never done it. We haven't done this in what, maybe decades in our conference. And so, Oleg, for example, when he goes and he trains people, there has to be some source of income there so that he can do that. But we're trying to keep it as minimal as possible. Okay, so I'm going to get into that a little bit more. Now, once a person gets done with the online training, they'll receive a certificate of completion, and that will then enable them and qualify them to enter the next phase of training, which is the field aspect. And there's two ways to do field training. There's number one, group training, and there's number two, individualized training. And we'll explain that a little bit more in the next slide. Once a person has finished their online training and then done their field training, whether in a group or one-on-one with an instructor, and they've completed those two courses, then they will be able to join what we have over here, which is called the Colporteur Evangelism Guild. Now, I'm a piano technician. and there's a piano technicians guild. So there's a bunch of people. You ever had a piano tuned in your house or in your church? Yes? No? Maybe? Yeah? Okay. All right. So those people who do that, that's a profession, and there's a lot of learning that goes into that, and they're part of what's called a piano technicians guild. And there's chapters, and these people come together, and they have continuing education, and they're supporting each other, and there's just a lot that's involved with that. It's a support society for that. And what we're aiming to do is to set up a support society for colporteurs. It's very difficult to be a colporteur long-term unless you have a support society or support system that you're plugged into, where you have mentorship and camaraderie with other people. Those of you who've done colporteuring before, can you agree with me by saying amen? Amen. Okay, thank you. All right, so just breaking it down a little bit, we'll talk about the online training a little bit more, and then we'll talk about the group training and the pros and cons, the comparisons between those two. Let's look at the online training real quick. Some of the things that are going to be covered in the online training. We're going to be teaching on there more exhaustively about the history of colporteuring. As I mentioned earlier, we'll have the canvases there available for you to begin memorization. Before you come to your field training, you should have your canvases already memorized so that we don't have to deal with that. That's out of the way. That can be something you can do in your home before you come. Then we'll also be talking, this is just a snippet of some of the things that we're going to be covering. I just picked some highlights. We'll be talking about the different kinds of door approaches, how to read people, the different pitfalls that colporteurs get into sometimes, which makes their door approach not effective. We'll be talking about how to give a presentation in the home. Once you get into a person's home, what do? Where do you put your books? What's the first thing you do when you get in there? And how do you relate with the family, etc. We'll also be talking about how to meet objections, both at the door so that you can get into the home, and what you do to meet objections after you're done with your canvas and they say, oh, well, I think the books are too expensive, or I won't use them, that kind of thing. So all the objections that we'll typically get, you'll get training on that before we even get into the field aspect. And then lastly, we'll be talking about gaining interests. We believe that colporteuring is not just sales. Amen? Amen. We believe that if you're a colporteur, that your ministry is equal to that of a pastor, which means that when you go to the doors, you're actually ministering to people. You're not a salesman. You're ministering to people. And because of that, you're not just offering them books, you're also offering them Bible studies, and you're acting as a connection piece between that person and the local church. Wherever a colporteur goes, if they're really doing their job well, they should be having baptisms following them because they're connecting them with the local church. If you make a sale of a book, but you don't offer people Bible studies, or you don't offer some way to connect them with the local church, you're not doing your job. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, about how to gain interest at what point in the process. Now, we finished talking about the online training. Let's talk a little bit about the field training, and I'm going to have Oleg come in here and weigh in on this as well. We mentioned there's group training and then solo training. Oleg, why don't you come up and talk to us a little bit about the pros and the cons of each model.
Thank you. And I want to tell you this day is such an exciting moment for me. Because starting something that has been dead for decades, and we believe, Nelson and I, we believe that this is probably the most difficult place in the world to start canvassing because of the laws of the country, because of the laws of the state. And there are so many things that to go around, and that has been so many times like a wall was erected before us. And we would say, oops. And then God will just make a way there, a little tiny way, and we'll just squeeze in a little more, and then a little more, and a little more, and finally we're here. So for you, it might be not that big of a deal. To us, for us, this is huge, because we're here. Yes, there are still things to be done, but God is with us, and if He is with us, who can be against us?
Yeah. There's a lot of issues. Oleg is right on. There's so many issues. To start a program like this in California with all the... Anyway, it's just very difficult. So we've had a lot of meetings, Oleg and I, with our human resources, with our lawyer, with our executive secretary, and even tomorrow we're presenting to the administration again these our perceived way for a path forward. So that's something you can pray about. Oleg and I will be talking to the conference president and the administrators about this so that we can finally get a stamp of approval in some aspects of it and continue to move forward. So,
And it's interesting that God is working on both sides. On one side, he's working with us because he has to motivate us, as we go, because sometimes you can just say, you know what, I'll just go and canvas in Nevada. I'll just go and canvas somewhere else, where the laws are actually kind of allowing you to do so. But God is working with us to motivate, but he was working with you. Because when you got that spark and he said, hey, I saw that they will be having some Colporteur thing, maybe something triggered, and God was working there. But then stuff came up, things says we're busy always. Maybe you forgot. But God was still working there. And maybe your car was not starting this morning like AJ's. He was like, oh, what happens there? And the devil was trying to keep everyone out, but you are here. So that's a huge, huge victory for God and for literature work here in California. There are two ways of getting trained because, yes, CTA is the easiest part, and maybe by this time you're frightened now. You say, what? I have to go back to school and remember tons of stuff, and I have to remember how to get into people's homes. How do I do that? And let me tell you, that's quite easy. You just take it step by step, and you build on that. And when you take the online course, you might think like, oh, I got it all together now. I know the canvas, I know. But when you go to the door and you forget everything, and you just, okay, bye. And you just have to leave there and you say, I'm not going to another door. That's another thing. That's the real thing when the rubber meets the road. And that's why we have two ways of training. Solo training, that's for those who have family, you have a job, you have your life going, and you're convicted that you want this ministry to be a part of your life, and you want to be part of this ministry. And you say, I want to get trained, and then we work around your schedule, and we'll try to work on that. And the group training, that's a totally different thing, where we build momentum, and where people get together. And thank you. Did I do that, or you did it for me? Thank you. And the group training, let's talk first about the group training, the pros and the cons. Let me just summarize. What does it mean, a group training? That means you finished your online course. And then we're planning on May 2, I think. Do we have the? No, we don't have the date. May 3. Sunday, May 3. We're planning to start that group training that will have a place. It's going to be here in Fresno, but we'll have places for the ladies to live, for the men to live, and actually you're coming here and you'll be living with somebody else again. Somebody, maybe you say, there, that's past in my life. I did that as a student. We're inviting people to get back to that and to be trained in that. And actually, you get to wake up nice and early in the morning to have your personal devotions and then group devotions. And then you get motivated and pray together and get fired. And then everybody's out to go. And you have a leader that will go with you for a few hours. And then you go by yourself. And then when you are tired and you kind of dismotivated, you go in. If you're down, you go and join someone who is doing really well. And then you say, oh, things are done that way. So this is a huge advantage of the, first is the group motivation, then no distractions. That's a big one. The biggest thing, and my brother who has canvassed, he can testify of that. The biggest thing that the canvasser has, full-time LE, is distractions. Good distractions, like family. Those are necessary distractions. But canvassers will start, they say, hey, this pipe is leaking at home. I have to fix this. And they will stay there and they'll lose one day of work. And then next day something else is there. And then next day, and they don't get to canvas. Mm-hmm. And their financial side is going down. And they see that they go in debt. And the family says, this ministry is not working. In order for this ministry to work, you have to stay focused. Yep. You have to be very focused. And the group training helps in that. Then experienced trainer daily with you in this setting. So that's a pro. Then go out with others. We've said about that. Successful colporteurs. You'll always have in your team people who are down, who are like, oh, I'm really shy. And you'll have others that you say that they were born for this. They would just go to the doors and they will have the best time at the door. And you go and you say, wow, it's so nice to listen. He's saying that. When people are saying, no, I don't have time, he just said that. That's so interesting. And you'll be catching that. And that's a big, big aspect of the training there. Then part of the missionary project, the idea is to have, in that group training, to have a mission project. For example, to target a special area, to work in a specific church, to have a Bible worker maybe there. We're working on that, so that he would follow up with interest. Then have a set schedule. That's like a boot camp. You have a set schedule, long hour days, long working hours, and that's when you really learn. And easier to earn more. That time is amazing. And where I'm bringing this from is from Argentina. We would go for 3 months as students, and we would live together, just as I am explaining, and we would work 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day.
These are adults.
Huh?
These are adults doing it.
Yes, adults doing there as well, saying just what I'm telling you. They're doing long hours, but in 3 months, as a student, when I was a student, we would earn enough money to pay for the entire year of tuition. 3 months would pay for 9 months of school. And the advanced schools here, they can be pricey. Over there in South America, it's just same thing. It's very costly to go there. And that would give us, so in short time, in 3 months, we would make enough money for food, for housing, and for tuition.
But what do you think, Oleg? That's down in Argentina. You think that you can sell a lot of books up here?
That's a good question that many people were asking. They say, hey, you know, all this is nice and sounds good, but that's over there. Over here in States, it doesn't work. In California, less. What do you think? You know, when I came here 2 years ago to States, I went to Weimar Institute to take a course there. They have health class. And then the director of the institute, he said, how are you going to pay? I said, canvassing. He said, but you have to pay $15,000. And you only have less than 4 weeks. I said, well, canvassing is the only thing I know, and that's the only way I know to do it. And he said, okay, so I had only 4 weeks to do it. I went to canvass, and what do you think? Did God give me those 15,000 or not? He gave me that and a little more. He gave me that and a little more. So canvassing is not, by now I know that God is not the God of South America, and that God works everywhere. And when he inspired this canvassing work, in his mind, he said, this is going to work everywhere around the world. We have to find little ways how, like we do now here in California, we have to find how to go by the law, abiding the law, but also doing what we have to do, because it seems like the devil is succeeding in putting more and more blocks to block this work. But there's still light. There's still light there. So anyway, the group training, the spiritual atmosphere, the social life, it's less expensive. You live there with other people. So it's just the momentum of the group that's a huge, huge motivation. There are some cons. Have to leave home. You have to leave your place and come to a place where we prepare, or God prepares for you. Have to live with a group, with people who maybe smell different than you like them to smell, and people talk differently. No, you have to get adapted to other people. You'll have a roommate there. It's very intense. It's very intense. Of course, we will adapt it to your age, to your energy level. We'll adapt that, but it's intense. So, and then harder to stay concentrated. That's a con of harder to stay concentrated. That's in the con for solo training when you're in your home. We messed that up a little, but basically, for me, a new colporteur who never canvassed, for me the best thing is to do a group training. It's just the motivation, it's the momentum, it's everything. It's the teachers that you have, your leader, and then other canvassers that are doing well. So that's a very good way of doing it. But Nelson, can you explain on solo training?
Sure. Yeah. And what you're saying, Oleg, is that people have had such a good time with the group trainings, in your experience, that most of them are just wanting to do it more than one time. They're wanting to join in and have that experience more than once. So
we had this problem in Argentina that people who would do group training, they didn't want to go back and do it by themselves. So we had to plan how to train them to do by themselves after, because they would always come and do group trainings. They say, it's so different when I'm back home, you know, I don't feel, because back home, I go back home and no one understands me. My family just looks at me and they say, oh, I had this and this. They just don't understand. But in group training, you come back home, everyone speaks the same language. So that kind of motivates me.
yeah. Amen. Yeah, once you've been a colporteur, you really can relate to each other in a certain way that nobody else can, having gone through the same experience. So, so we also are going to be offering solo training. Now, we understand, of course, that not everybody is going to be able to make it to the group training. So we still want to make an option for people who want to learn how to do colporteuring and yet still retain their job that they had prior to that. So that is also what we have here, and there's some pros and cons to that. Number one, obviously, is the flexibility. You know, you're going to have more flexibility to be able to have training while you're still doing something else. You get to stay back with your family. This would be something that would be coming to you, for example, in the Bay Area or Bakersfield. You know, we would be coming down as trainers to work with you. And another pro is that you get to immediately, even when you're being trained, work in your own neighborhood, which is great because you're generating interests and working right in your own home field and plowing that ground. And then you also get to be a missionary for your local church. So immediately you're benefiting your local church. Now, of course, after the group training, you're going to go back and you're going to work your local area too. We're just talking about getting to your local area faster. There's some cons with that. Number one is the distractions. You know, when you're in that group setting and you're working with people and you're fully concentrating 24/7 on being trained in a group, then there's less distractions. And anybody who's ever done colporteuring knows that, as Oleg was saying, distractions are a big issue in the colporteur's life. It simply comes down to a numbers game at a certain point. If you don't stick to a certain schedule as a colporteur, if you're not out for a certain amount of hours every day, then you can expect that your sales are going to reflect that. And so, you know, getting into the habit of doing that without having distractions is a blessing and very essential. It's more expensive for us to be able to come out to you in your area, to drive, to make the time in our schedule to drive all the way out, depending on where you live, to commit however many hours of training. I mean, we're talking about hotel expenses, us spending the night, all these kind of things. There's going to be costs incurred to the conference that, even though this is a significantly more expensive way of doing it, even so, we're still, as a conference, probably going to be putting money into that training process. There's probably going to be subsidy coming in from the conference to even make that happen. So the fact that the individualized training is $1,200 is actually not that much. You know, when you learn a trade for other vocations, you have to expect that you're going to put money into being trained. And this is something that you can make a living doing. As I said, Oleg made lost money. He's losing money by working for us. So you're not having as much contact with leaders or other colporteurs with this individualized, and then the other pro or con is that, well, you're staying with your family. And so that actually, even though it's a pro, it also can be a con. So we're not talking about the rest of your life. We're just talking about the training period. The training period. Y'all know how that goes. I have a 5-year-old, and she's definitely a pro in my life. But there's some cons there. So you heard all the noise of the cons a little bit ago. So those are the pros and cons of those two different models, individualized and the group training. Now, after a person does the online training aspect and then selects whether they want to do the group or the solo training, and they complete the requirements for that, then they are going to be fully, completely trained to make a success. At least they should be. And I believe that most people who enter the program will come out with the ability. We're going to have a vetting process, so not everybody's going to be able to even be trained. But after that, you have to have a support system. And this is one of the biggest areas that we're looking into. But one thing that we know for sure after the training is complete is that there will be a Colporteur Evangelism Guild. And that'll be composed of many people in this room. Elements of that will include group canvassing. It's very good when we can get together as colporteurs and canvass and do missionary work together. There's a lot of benefit that comes from that, a lot of momentum. Even if it's just getting together every Sunday or every other Sunday in specific chapter areas and going canvassing, it's a blessing. This is something that a lot of people don't have, for example, in the Southern Union. At most, they'll get a visit from their leader maybe once a month when they're going well, but they don't really get together as a team except for maybe once a year for a retreat. Continuing education. The meetings in the Colporteur Evangelism Guild should be times when we come together and we talk about what's working and what's not. When you go into the home and you have some, kid that's messing with your books while you're trying to give a presentation, well, one person has figured out how to make that work and how to tactfully get around that situation, and he can teach the rest. So there's so many different ways that we can continually improve ourselves as colporteurs. Colporteuring is not something that is just you learn it once and you're good to go for the rest of your life. You can continually refine your colporteuring skills for the rest of your life. In fact, a good colporteur is constantly improving their skills. Their door approach, learning how to read people, learning how to relate, learning how to maneuver around objections tactfully. It's a very complex work. Retreats, the conference will be organizing retreats for the people who are part of the Colporteur Evangelism Guild, where we'll be getting together up in the mountains or on the coast, exclusively for those who are part of the guild. We'll be taking some time together for spiritual refreshment. And then lastly, people who are part of the Colporteur Evangelism Guild will be receiving the best pricing that the conference can make available to them. So it's going to be a benefit to you to be part of the Colporteur Evangelism Guild in terms of the pricing of your books, as opposed to going it on your own and not being part of that group. So let's see. Did that explain it? I think that was the basic overview of that. Oleg, is there something else that you wanted to tag on?
We are so sure that you have so many questions. You have more questions than answers right now. Because, for us, this is kind of there because we've been working on this, and I'm kind of familiar with this. But for some of you that are new to this, you say, what? So you have many questions. We'll have a time for questions and answers after lunch. In your folder there, you have an application form. It says Colporteur application form. Please, if you think that God has called you to this ministry, and after hearing what you heard so far, and after what you're going to hear in this next half an hour, if God is speaking to you and you feel that you want to keep pursuing this, and being a colporteur, please fill out that application form and give it back there to Desiree. It's you can see it's on both sides of that paper, of that page. It's on both sides, so don't forget to fill out on both sides. As well, you received a how do you call that? A survey there. Please, we want to know the answer to those questions. You don't have to put your name. That's completely anonymous. But we also want people to represent literature evangelism in their churches. And there is a question, the last question there, asked if you would like to be a literature ministry secretary for your church. If the answer is yes to that, you can go back to Desiree and say your name, and she will mark down that you want to be that, and will be communicating with you. We really hope that the group's training doesn't have to be big. We're hoping not to make it big. We don't want more than 15 people in that, so that we can attend everyone the way they should be attended, and it can be anywhere from 7 to 15. So we'll be working on that, and that's going to be, we'll have 2 options, 12 weeks or 15 weeks being in the training. Or if in your case you say, no way I can do that, because I've received calls, people already contacting me because they want to get in group training because of their situation in life and everything, they want that. So, but if you want solo training, we can talk as well.
I'd also like to just mention too, with either one of these trainings, especially the solo training, which is more expensive, that when you're being trained, you're actually selling books, and when you're selling books, you're making money. So you should be able to go through that course and be able to pay off the funds that you had to put in to get the training to begin with. So it's not like you're going into debt. You should come out with more money than you had to pay to get it. And secondly, colporteurs should be very valuable to their local churches. So we encourage those who think that maybe they can't afford something, some of the training, to contact your local church. That is something that should be something that they could put money towards, because they're getting a colporteur coming back.